Let's have a look at this rangefinder. There's a lot of paint loss around this frame at the back. That's unusual. I think somebody's probably cleaned that paint off there. Likewise, there's some paint loss around that frame there, so it suggests that somebody cleaned the glass with something that was not ideal. Looking at the state of the mirrors, the front lens here, that's quite grubby. This mirror at this point, that's silvered on one surface. This front surface here is not silvered, the back surface is silvered. It's a semi-silvered mirror. So this front surface of the glass you can clean just with a cotton bud if you so desired. The inner surface, you wouldn't want to do that because you would rub the silvering off it fairly promptly, and then you would have a nice clear viewfinder with no rangefinder patch. The rear eyepiece here is pretty grimy. Both surfaces of the glass there are dirty. The front surface mirror here, it's got a fingerprint on it around here where you can get to it, around those exposed edges. It's okay further in. There's a patch of something in the middle which may or may not be dirt, it may or may not remove. So first thing I do is I want to get the rangefinder arm off there. If the screw's not done up too tight, a stiff pair of tweezers will work. And if the screw is done up too tight, you'll need something else. I've got a nice tool here which came from Mr. Beljan, famous for making the tools for removing the retainer ring on shutters. But this tool is intended for unscrewing pinhead screws like this, if I can get it adjusted correctly. Get these pins in place. That's it. Right. Just needed to break that free. Release that spring over the top there. That'll stop it pushing on here so hard. And see what's inside. It is obviously graphite grease or something on there. You can tell by the colour of it. It's quite dirty, but that's by no means unusual. To take this apart for cleaning, well, the most important thing is to take out the mask in here that provides your frame lines. And you need to remove that prior to cleaning, because were that to go through the ultrasonic cleaner would do a nice job of removing half the frame lines for you. The frame lines are on this, effectively a piece of film in the back here, and if that gets wet, the presumably gelatine coating tends to crack and you end up with a lot more bright lines than you started off with, and And believe me when I say that if you've got extra bright lines you don't want, painting them out is very, very tedious. So it's worth taking great care to preserve that and not damage it. I'll take off this frame. Now this has lost some of its paint, as I've said. When I put that back together I'll just blacken that with marker pen. I'm not going to paint that. Tip out that glass, you can certainly see it's dirty on the inside. Now I noticed our mirror here, our front surface mirror, is loose in the holder. That's okay, it's held in under spring tension. My worry is that that'll rattle its way loose in the ultrasonic cleaner. I don't want to remove it completely because it's very hard to handle this without putting fingerprints on it, as like the previous person has. This little condenser lens here is plastic. That'll clean in the ultrasonic cleaner quite fine, no problem there. And looking at this piece here, I can see there's a couple of blobs of dirt on there, which I'll remove now, because if I clean that surface that I can clean safely, before I put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, all I need to do then is worry about the ultrasonic cleaner cleaning the delicate surface, and I don't need to overdo that cleaning, because potentially overdoing the cleaning, the ultrasonic cleaner will strip the silvering off the lens too. So you have to exercise some caution doing that. That's good. Let's have a look at this lens while I'm at it. The front surface is by no means as bad as the back surface, which means that somebody has probably been cleaning this in comparatively recent times, and of course they've cleaned the outside surface because that's the one you can get to. And the rangefinder arm here I don't put through the ultrasonic cleaner. There's only the one piece of glass here to worry about. It's easily accessed and it's robust. The ultrasonic cleaner excels in getting to cleaning delicate surfaces where you don't want to be rubbing at them. That's good. I'm going to clean the old grease off this arm. Yeah, it's quite stained. And I'll pop that bush out. I'll note where that bush sat first. I'll put a little scratch across that. And wipe up the side where the return spring sat. That arm's good, that's ready to go back. The bush. That's fine. The screw that holds it all together. Wasn't much wrong with that. The little spring washer. The wavy washer, that's fine. This I'm going to take out to the ultrasonic cleaner and give it a brief clean. Typically I clean it in my ultrasonic cleaner for 3 minutes. I find that sufficient to do the job. What I'm most concerned with here, looking at the state of this now, the surface that most concerns me is this front silvered mirror here. Of course, front silvered mirrors, the silvering is on the front of the glass, not at the back of the glass. Your normal domestic mirrors, the silvering's on the back of the glass, and then silvering is covered with a protective layer. So the silver is not easily damaged. Silvering on the front surface of the glass is easily damaged, and the silver is very, very soft. You only have to wipe it something like that with a cotton bud, and you will just turn it into a nice satin finish, which of course is not much fun for mirrors. So I'll go and clean that and come back. Right, this is back from the cleaner. The semi-silvered mirror here at the eyepiece end is very good. The front surface mirror here, those marks didn't come away, they didn't clean off. The fingerprints, if anything, are more prominent now that the dust has been blown away. But the mirror is not in great condition at all. I'm sure it'll work fine, it's just not visually appealing, I suppose you could say. Right, let's get this thing back together. So I've got to clean this viewfinder, the eyepiece lens here first, so I'll just clean this with some glass cleaner. Now this rear eyepiece is convex on one face and pretty much flat on the other. The convex side goes inwards, the flat side goes outwards. A bit of dust on there, I'll just give that a wipe. Now I'll flip that thing over. Just checking the state of that. That looks good. Right, this piece here, which has lost its blackening. Of course, originally it was a nice flat matte black finish. I don't have a matte black pen, so we'll just use what I've got. That's a great improvement. Yeah, nobody will be complaining about that. The lines, they're frame lines. I'm reluctant to do anything to these because I know easily they are damaged. I'm just going to hold it up to the light. Anytime this is clear, obviously you'll get bright lines showing in the finder. Where it's black, you get nothing showing in the finder at all. There's a little speck of crap on here that'll wipe off. Obviously, if there's any specks of dust on the clear lines, you won't get a bright line in the finder. That looks fine. I'll pop that back in place. If you have a Retina IIIC big C or 2 big C and you find the 35 and 80mm lens frame lines disturb you, you can paint them out on this component, but it's pretty much a one-way thing. If you have a change of heart later, it's too late. And I don't have any spares. that little shiny metal plate there is a spacer. It's a shim just to bring the frame lines back in the finder body slightly. I'll just check that it's not sitting entirely square there. I'll just square that up. That's better, and I'll have a look through that finder and see what the frame lines look like. Yeah, there's a couple of little extra clear marks, clear lines in there where that frame, there must be a crack in the gelatin at a couple of spots, but they are very, very minor, and I don't think they distract from it at all. That'll be fine. So I'll leave that. That part's good. Now, the assembly. Well, here I want a bit of molybdenum paste, which is what I typically use as a lubricant here. So, a wipe on that top surface. Whenever you're using this stuff, you don't need to do any more than just leave a dirty mark with it, really. You don't need to apply a thick gooey layer of the stuff. I suppose I'll put some here where the return spring runs. Get that bit of fluff off there. Right, let's get the bush pressed back into place. Now I put a little scratch on this so it can go back in exactly the same place it came from. As far as I know, these are circular, but because they're split, they act to some extent like an eccentric. You want them going back in the same position if possible, otherwise you will have more adjustments to do. To get this in position, I will need its spring hooked up in place. Line up the bush with the hole in the top plate. Quick wipe there where the wavy wash is going to sit. Put the screw in place. Screw it down, and I'll just use my tweezers to tighten this up because you don't need to go crazy. Check the action, it's smooth. I'll look out the window. My vertical adjustment's pretty good. Yeah. The horizontal adjustment is out in that this thing is returning back past infinity. So this little screw down here, I want to screw that in slightly so that the viewfinder, rangefinder never goes past infinity. That screw's loose. Tells me someone's been playing with that because typically they're locked in with a bit of lacquer. It's only just past now. And I'm going to, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'll put a spot of lacquer on there now to stop that screw from moving because it's unusually loose. That's all that's required, and that rangefinder is good to go. That would be ready to put back on the camera body. Put that to one side. What's left here? I think the meter needs to be checked. Now I'm not concerned about the accuracy because I can do very little about the accuracy. These days the selenium cells are almost all failing in some way. As a result, the output from the selenium cells is not linear across the light range. You can make some adjustment with the position of the dial, meter dial, to make the meter read accurately at one particular light level. But if the response of the selenium cell is not as it should be, then you'll find that you can make it read well accurately at one light level, but it will be inaccurate at other light levels, more inaccurate as you move away from that particular light level. Now these parts are unusually clean. Unusually clean parts almost always means someone's been cleaning them. So someone's been here before us. The meter housing here has been pushed down. That would tie in with the damage on the top cover. These parts are not only unusually clean, they are not lubricated either. So I'm just going to take a bit of synthetic grease here, right round the centre, round the cam surface, and just a gentle wipe across the surface there. Let's get that piece off, don't need that much. Pop this in place, and the action's nice and smooth, but what I'm checking for here is to make sure that the needle swings back evenly. That's sprung loaded. I need to make sure that it swings back under the influence of its return spring, otherwise it tends to stick over this side where the cam is pushing it and not swing back this way where the cam is releasing it. That seems to work fine. I'll circle it back in place. Now of course the cover plate was missing on the base of this and needs to be glued back in. The cover plate was a little disc of aluminium. And where have I put it? Right as you were, I found it. It's a little bit scarred on the underside where it was driven into the top of the film advance shaft. Let's just apply a little bit of adhesive to the outside rim of this. It doesn't need much, and it can't fall out once it's in place because it'll be sitting on top of that film advance shaft. That'll do. I don't want threads of it lying around loose because they will potentially catch in the mechanism. Okay, so that's good. That's sitting back down where it should be, and that's its job really, is to keep the dust and dirt out of the meter. So that's our components for the top of the camera pretty much sorted out. I've got two choices at this point. I can continue closing up the top of the camera, and I've still got to do the shutter. I'll have to come back and make an adjustment here, but we can do that. Just making sure that strap lug is correctly pushed down to the end of the body. Let's start with the rangefinder, I think. Zoom you back out a bit, you're seeing nothing. That's better. A wipe of molybdenum on that cam surface. Some lacquer to stop this thing floating. I usually put 4 spots on there. And that's just to prevent the rangefinder from shifting on the body if the camera gets dropped or receives a solid thump. It's one of the ways that rangefinders lose their adjustment is when that's happened. Okay, here's the parts. For one reason or another I have parts in 2 different containers, just to make life interesting probably. Make sure that your focus scale is back to infinity. Pull this into position. Oh, this rangefinder is relatively scarred up. Someone has been mucking with the adjustments. Looking at that, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the adjustments are well out. Yeah, somebody's been playing with the cam on the end of that. That cam, changing the angle of that changes the relative action of the rangefinder at the close-up end of the range and the distance end of the range. And someone's been playing with that. What's going on here? These screw heads are a little bit damaged. That's better. Right, I'll check the action of this looking out the window and see what we get. That's miles away on the infinity end of the scale. And the screws here are somewhat scarred up. Yeah, the vertical alignment looks off too, so I'm going to have to check that. Yeah, so vertical alignment on these rangefinders is entertaining. There's 2 ways that vertical alignment can be affected. One is by moving this lens upwards or downwards, and the other is by changing the tilt on the semi-silvered mirror. Now, getting that tilt on the semi-silvered mirror correct is exceptionally awkward. Someone has been playing with this screw. That tells me someone has been making their adjustment there, or attempting to make an adjustment there, and so this could be entertaining getting this right. I'm checking which of the images is high. You've got your fixed image and your moving image as you swing the arm, and in this case the moving image is high, and that means I need to move this lens upwards, I think, in order to bring that image down. There are two screws, one at each end here. All of these measurements, all these adjustments are very subtle. It's very easy to make too big a change and not like the result. Yeah, it certainly needs to come up. Okay. When the adjustment is very slight indeed, just moving one end can be sufficient. If the adjustment is required is greater, you probably need to move both ends. So there we go. Yeah, I can tell by the look of those screws that someone's certainly been here before me. It's difficult to get to this one because of the angle. Something's jammed up. What's happened here? Oh, that rangefinder arm's pulled back over the top of that cam. It does suggest that something's been buggered about with. Yeah, the arm on this rangefinder is bent at this point. That means it doesn't, as it tracks over the pin that's coming up, as it tracks over it, it's pulling off to one side, and that's why I'm getting this odd result. I'm going to have to take this back off the camera and straighten that arm up. It's to do with that adjustment on the end here, that little cam is used for making the adjustment for the close-up end of the range, and it looks like someone has, I don't know, probably twisted it up with a pair of pliers and they bent the arm in the process. So that this arm is not straight. You can see that this arm is sticking up. It's at an angle. It needs to be bent back down at this point. How you can do that, you can create that problem when you put the rangefinder back in the body. If you are not careful that this cam here, to make sure that it is behind or actually in front of the pin in the camera body, and in fact sitting on top of it, and then you crank your screws up, you'll bend that arm as a result. Now I think that's what's happened here. I don't know if I can lift that arm off completely. It looks like I can. So I've got the arm here now, and I can see it's most definitely bent at this point. Fun and games. because it doesn't require much force to bend thin sections like this. There's some scarring across there. I didn't do that, that was already there. That scarring suggests that someone's had a go at this. Yeah, so somebody's had a go at this, they've loosened off that nut and they've attempted to turn this cam. Yeah, still need more than that. Right, I'll work on this for a minute and I'll be back.